Yeah.
Recording in progress.
All right. I guess that means we're on. We're ready to go. Hello, everybody. I'm Tanya Morrow, Chair of the RVTV Board, and I'm gonna call the regular meeting of January 24th, 2024, the RVTV Board to order. Roll call.
Denise Kraus,
Here.
Bill Mansfield,
Here.
Tanya Morrow,
Here.
Don Stone, Jenna Marmon.
Here.
Dan Davis,
Here.
Carl McNair.
Here.
There's a quorum.
Thank you. Everybody's gotten the November meeting minutes since we didn't have a December meeting. Are there any corrections, comments on those? Seeing none. Seeing those approved. And then is there anyone that did not get the financial packet? All right, everybody's gotten the financial packet. Thank you guys for putting that together always. Moving right along, I think we can put up the screen and hear from Paige. You're gonna have a report from us, for a special award presentation.
Yes, good evening, Chair Morrow and Board of Directors. To apologize, I had RSV last week and my voice is a little shaky, but it doesn't hurt. It's just, it's difficult to probably understand everything. So please, if I'm not speaking clearly enough, interrupt me and I'll repeat myself. And I also wanted to recognize that Ms. Brown has joined us. She's just gotten in from her Oregon Transportation Commission meeting in Salem. Hi, Julie.
Good evening, Ms. Brown.
Good evening. Glad to be here. Glad traffic was light.
Oh, Director Stone just walked in too.
Okay, good. Everybody have a seat? Yeah.
Julie, where was the meeting? Portland or Salem?
It was in Salem tonight, this week. Yeah. So, and I'm going to be here in Salem for a few more days, meeting with some representatives and working on the transportation plans or transportation package. So if you need to get a hold of me, phone is the best way.
Okay. So my name is Paige West. I'm the Planning and Strategic Programs Manager for RVTD. And really excited about presenting to you tonight with upcoming service changes that we have planned for March. And this is on the heels of the Route 17 that we put in June of 2023. And really prior to that, we were trying to do resurrection of pre-COVID service, such as Saturdays and evening service, Route 63, that had been suspended. So tonight's presentation is going to be reviewing service changes that are really coming out of about 9 months worth of work that the planning department has been doing to identify issues that might be occurring within the existing system and trying to address those so that the service is more reliable and provides more of a stable service for our passengers. In the background of all of this, we continue to work on service enhancements for Central Point, and that is a long-term project because it's going to require that we do a complete new route alignment within Central Point and also likely change the Route 40 footprint, which runs from Medford to Central Point. Part of what we're doing tonight and presenting to you, and then what we'll be looking to do with the service change in March, actually does complement what we hope to do in Central Point. And I think I might have mentioned last fall when we were discussing service changes that it's better to take it in phases and not just completely rearrange the system all at once for passengers, but to instead try to compartmentalize smaller service changes and then allow the system to stabilize and for passengers to understand them before you make another major change. So that's the intention really of these service changes that we're doing in the spring. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. See that PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So the three routes that we are proposing to make modifications to are Route 21. That's the one here in green. It's the smaller route here that serves North Medford, North Central Medford. The Route 27, which is our crosstown, that's this one that's goes all the way across East Medford and then to West Medford. And then the Route 61 is the longest route of these changes. It runs all the way from downtown Medford, Front Street Station, up by Poplar to the airport, all the way to RCC, over to Cascade Shopping Center on Highway 62, and then back again. So the Route 21, we're proposing, we will change it to a 40-minute route. And this is just a summary, I'm going to go through more details, that it will now have 20-minute frequency, which is fantastic for convenience for passengers. But on Saturdays, like many of our routes, we maintain a lower level of service. And so on Saturdays, it would have 40-minute frequency. The Route 27, that crosstown route, is a 60-minute route. We would like to move it to 30-minute frequency, which was its pre-COVID level. So that's one of these resurrection stories of trying to get our service back that we had to suspend. And then also on Saturdays, similar to other routes, we would run it only every 60 minutes. And then last, the Route 61, we are looking at doing a slight alignment change, which I'll describe more. And this will allow us to serve Amy's Kitchen. Really excited to be able to provide that service directly to Amy's Kitchen. We've had partnerships with them for several years, but have been unable to actually provide service to their campus. And this would be kind of an express service that would be operating limited throughout the day. And I'll explain more about why that is. Okay, so the Route 21, essentially it goes from Front Street Station, up Biddle, around to Highway 62 using that right turn slip lane, which can be challenging if anyone's used that, trying to get from Biddle over to Highway 62, you have to yield for traffic. And then it turns right on Poplar, serves Fred Meyer and all of the shopping along that area, and then goes by the hospital and then back down to downtown. This route has been in service since 2001 at its current alignment, and also on a 30-minute, what we call run time, which is basically the time that it takes for us to do that entire trip and then have hopefully some recovery at the end so that a driver during the middle of the day is not rushed, super rushed. What we're finding though is that with our schedule adherence data that we pulled for the entire month of October, and also anecdotally from what we've been hearing from drivers over these past couple of years, that we are missing our trips to Front Street Station approximately 28% of the time. What that means is that people who are riding the 21 to get downtown, they miss their transfer if they were actually trying to get a transfer. But also it's causing anxiety for passengers who are trying to catch the bus. It's not there for 10 minutes. Where's my bus? And it's also causing anxiety for drivers. So what we're proposing is to simply add 10 more minutes to this schedule and not change the alignment, and just adjust the times within the schedule so that we can provide that extra buffer that you need for a transit route. So essentially what we're going to do is make it a 40-minute run time. We're going to, though, assign 2 buses to this route so that it will have 20-minute frequency. And this would be the third route in our system that has 20-minute frequency. Now, I was really surprised when I pulled the ridership for this area to find that the Route 61, which duplicates this service alignment when it's in Medford before it goes to White City. If you add the Route 61 and the Route 21 ridership together in this area, it's the fourth highest ridership area in our service district. So it warrants 20-minute service. It's definitely a popular area. We have low-income housing, older adult housing, people with disabilities that like to live in this area as well. So we don't want to change anything really except for just make it better. And I think that's exactly what we're going to do. So moving on, the Route 27 is a little more complicated, and only because it's meant to be a crosstown route, almost like if you think about it like a belt line that cities often will build around their cities. We tried to do that with this Route 27, knowing that when you are riding from the outskirts of Medford into downtown Medford, your travel time is essentially 15 minutes one way. And so if you're really just trying to get from, say, Central Point to White City, you have to go all the way into Medford and then transfer and then go all the way out. Another example would be if you're trying to get from, say, Northwest Medford to Southwest Medford. It was before you would have to go all the way into downtown Medford and then all the way out. Well, this route provides that transfer opportunity on the outskirts of the main hub. And it connects to 8 different routes. You can see they're hashed here. The Route 27 itself is that lighter brown color, but all the other routes that are presented on this map are transfer opportunities to this route. Now, because it is a transfer-based route, we started it off at 30-minute service to make those transfers convenient. Unfortunately, it was one of the routes that we had to suspend in 2020 during the pandemic because of driver shortages. It had just gotten started in 2019. It had very low ridership, and it was kind of a low-hanging fruit, I guess, for us to identify for suspension instead of maybe one of our more, basic routes like the Route 10. This route also has the highest Latino population within a quarter mile of the route, and 42% of passengers earn less than $10,000. So this is, if you recall the Title VI plan that we presented to you a few months ago, it's what we would consider a Title VI route, which means that it has higher than average minority populations and people who are living in poverty. So the solution is simply just to bring it back to the pre-COVID frequency of 30-minute frequency. We won't be changing the alignment. We'll just be adding another bus to it and bringing it back to its pre-COVID levels. Now, this is also funded with STIF dollars, the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund. It was one of those routes that we identified back in 2017 for the STIF funding. So this is already essentially funded. We already have the money set aside for this route. It's been sitting there. We've just been waiting for the drivers to be able to be recruited and hired so that we could bring it back to its former state. And then lastly, the Route 61. Now, this route runs 90 minutes with its recovery time. So it's a very long route to go all the way to Front Street, out to White City, and then back. It takes 90 minutes, and it currently runs 15 times per day. Now, this route is one that we put in 2016 to provide a connection to the Rogue Community College Table Rock campus. However, it duplicates the Route 21 when it's in Medford. So the Route 21 is in this green, and right now, before the service change, but right now, when it comes back, it follows this green line all the way back, which, as you've heard with the Route 21, it causes some issues with time. It is getting stuck in traffic, and we are seeing that it too has schedule adherence issues. However, because we're going to be bringing the Route 21 to a better service level, we feel like it's a huge duplication of service for us to also run the 61 on that same alignment when it's in Medford. So we're proposing to do something different, changing the alignment, and that would allow us to not only bring it back into a reliable schedule, but also expand out to Amy's Kitchen. With this route too, we are seeing extremely low ridership when it's not in Medford. So our ridership pool that we did for October shows that there were an average daily trips on the entire route of 239. However, 74% of those were occurring on the Route 61 or Route 21 alignment, essentially south of Highway 62. So 26% of those trips are occurring north of 62. That's a very low ridership for that many miles and hours of our service, our entire service. I would say it's probably one of the lowest areas of our entire system when you get north of 62. This is consistent also with our onboard passenger surveys that we've been doing over these past couple of months. We did one on the Route 61, asking folks where are they coming from and going to, and a myriad of other questions, and identified that 67% of our passengers are just staying in Medford when they're on this route. They're not even going to White City or the airport or anywhere north of 62. So we know that really this route is most productive in the Route 21 area. And once we essentially unbuckle it from that area, it will continue to have probably lower ridership until we can really garner some more response from RCC and hopefully Amy's Kitchen as well. So because of that, it is running 15 times per day right now. We're proposing to run it only 7. So starting at 5:30 in the morning. Again, it's going to be a 90-minute trip. We're not changing that 90 minutes. So it's 5:30 in the morning, 8 a.m., 10 a.m., 12 p.m., 2 p.m., 4 p.m., and 6 p.m. Now, what is really cool though is that we've worked with the HR department, with Amy's Kitchen, and also with the enrollment department at RCC. And these times line up very well with the shift times for Amy's Kitchen, all except, and they're on 3 shifts. All except for one shift, which is the graveyard shift, but every other shift will be accommodated by this limited schedule. And they are also looking at being able to flex potentially some of those shift times so that workers can use transit. So we're really hoping that that will help to increase ridership. This route will continue to serve RCC and also go over to Cascade Shopping Center on Highway 62 and pick up people that are maybe in White City or also who have come in from Eagle Point. The route that goes to Eagle Point, which is Route 63, meets up at Cascade Shopping Center with this Route 61 and also the Route 60 that goes on Highway 62 back to Medford. Okay, so next steps, really what we're doing tonight is just providing you with the overview of these service changes. They do, in the culmination of all of these changes, they do exceed the 5% change in service hours policy that does require a public hearing. And so we will be holding that public hearing at the February 28th meeting. And between now and then, we'll be looking at meeting with the driver union to finalize the run board, which is our driver shifts. And then hopefully we'll be putting these changes into place on March 31st. Now, the probably obvious question is, do you have enough drivers? Yes, we do. We do have enough drivers. You might recall, we talked a little bit about September, the paid FEMLA law going into place. And then also, of course, holidays occurring. We had recruited drivers in the fall. They've been with us. They're behind the wheel. They're already working. But we wanted to get through that potential loss of workforce or an absenteeism due to the holidays and the paid FEMLA before we would launch a new service. And so that's the point that we are at right now. We have the drivers that are ready to fulfill these changes. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Paige,
Good, Dan.
how do you let the public know, how do we let the public know about these changes? So if they want to catch a bus, they know when and where.
Good question. This has been posted on our website this week and will continue to be posted as a news item. It has this presentation, the memo that was received in your packet. And then there will be instructions with the next agenda on how to participate in the public hearing. We also will be reaching out to RCC and Amy's Kitchen again. And likely we'll have a public a press release that we'll put out in the paper. I think, you know, obviously Route 21 and 27, that's an increase in service, right? I mean, that's all good news. The change that I think we might get some feedback back on is the 61, because we are removing it from the Poplar Square area, although that's going to be replaced with the 21 service. But we are limiting that schedule a little bit. We're truncating it down a little bit more than what it is today, although I think it still meets the needs of the people who are using it.
We post a change in at the stops, bus stops.
We could. Yes, we absolutely could. We typically would put them like in the bus shelters for right now. And then anytime we do a service change that's imminent, that's planned, let's say this has been approved and we're marching forward in March, we post all of our stops. We'll have an announcement that is on there. We use a laminate and zip ties on our pole stops so that all the passengers know. And then we use, you know, social media as well.
I have a question about the choice of routes. I had expressed some concern about the low ridership of Route 26, Springbrook. Was that at all considered with your changes, or was it the low ridership a major issue in your making these choices?
Route 26. I feel like we need to give it a little more time. We put it in 2019 with the 4 other routes that were SIF funded. And you're right, it does have low ridership. But I think we haven't quite given it a chance yet, especially since we're still coming out of COVID. The general practice is to allow 3 years for a route to demonstrate itself. Now we're past that with the Route 26 because it went in 2019. We're right on the cusp of it, I guess. But I think we should give it a little more time and see if it can prove itself. It's on 60-minute service right now. I don't think it warrants going to 30-minute service to try to, you know, improving frequency is the #1 thing that you can do to increase ridership, except for reducing your fare. That's sort of the, you know, transit best practices. If you're really trying to increase ridership, you increase the frequency. I mean, imagine if a bus came 7 minutes every 7 minutes, you know, people would be riding all over. The 26 doesn't really, I don't think it's ready for that yet. So it's not part of these service changes right now, Director Stone, but I think that we do need to keep an eye on it.
On the 61 page, so I think I heard 3 years, so looking at that, how will we measure success, and are there other alternatives if the ridership remains low after 3 years, or what kind of things would we consider?
Good question. We did consider maybe more of a shuttle, which could cause some problems because there's limited seating, you know, whenever you switch out. It's if RVTD operates with our drivers, whether it's a 9-passenger van or a 35-passenger bus, it's essentially the same cost. we have a little bit of savings in fuel, but really the cost is the labor. It's the driver hours. So that's always something that we're trying to be careful with. It's like, well, let's just downsize. And it's like, well, actually, it's going to cost us the same. But then what if we get a surge in ridership because Amy's Kitchen shift just ended, right? We saw that with Harry. We see that with Harry and David quite a lot. But I'm really hoping that, you know, we can work more closely with RCC and try to, they have a bus pass program. We do lots of advertising with them, but they have free parking. So that's always going to be difficult for us. Amy's Kitchen is one that I'm hoping we can tap into. We've been working with them for a number of years. We know that there are some people who actually are walking from
Oh my God.
our closest bus stop over to Amy's Kitchen right now. So, but this is, you know, this is an area of our district that's remote. We've had conversations with Road Community College for about 15 years about our commitment to provide public transportation to their campus at Table Rock. So it's not something that we would ever, I think, want to just walk away from, but we do need to be strategic. And I think that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're trying to dial in a schedule that's going to be the most efficient and provide a good level of service for the people who are traveling out all that way.
Does Amy's Kitchen, do they have a bus pass program?
Not yet.
Are they talking about it?
Mhm.
Good. Do we have access to the passenger surveys, or can we see summaries of that?
Sure. Yes, we did present it. I think Dr. Cross, before you were maybe on the board, it would have been in like March of last year, but absolutely, we can send those out. We have our 3-year onboard survey that we conducted, and then we have our the ones that we've been focusing on the Route 40 and the Route 61 are, I wouldn't say they're polished and ready to be read, but we do have that data that I can try to package up and send out to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Paige? Thanks for the presentation. Good luck with the outreach to our community, and I guess we'll have a hearing on the 28th.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
We have no public hearings tonight, so we'll move on to new business, which is the appointment of new members to our statewide transportation improvement fund advisory committee, STIFAC. You're going to present on this one as well, Paige?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. So as part of our statewide transportation improvement fund rule that was passed in 2017, all qualified entities, I was gonna say quantified, that's not right. Qualified entities, QEs around the state are required to have an advisory committee, which we've had since 2018. And those terms are, again, by rule, limited. And so we have some vacancies basically because of those term limits. I think many of the advisory committee members would have been happy to stay on, but they'll have to wait. They'll have to skip a term before they can be appointed again. So we did a solicitation, did lots of public outreach before Thanksgiving, and had the applications open through the end of December. We received some really good applicants, 7, I believe, total, and our team spoke with the applicants, and then also we worked with the advisory committee to ask for their recommendations. Now, part of our requirement too is that there has to be certain representations by rule. And so, for example, older adults, or people with disabilities, minority, and what's called a public transportation service provider, PTSP, which is often either living opportunities or Community Volunteer Network. So we have to be careful that we're making sure all of those seats are filled without over duplication, one way or another. So we've narrowed it down to these 4, and the STIF Advisory Committee was very supportive of these 4 applicants. And the board has the responsibility of appointing them to the advisory committee. I don't believe any of them are here tonight. And Adam Gomez is also on. Adam, I don't know if you had anything else to add. He completely oversaw the recruitment and spoke with those applicants. So he's here if you have any questions.
I was going to add, Paige, I also attended the STIFAC meeting where they talked about each applicant and their support of the slate of people that applied. And I believe was there 2 additional that we did not select? Is that correct? I think it was 2. Adam, am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I think Paige mentioned part of what we're looking for is making sure we have that representation in those required categories. And yeah, we had a lot of strong applicants. So in pairing that with the representation categories, we came up with these 4, I think, really strong applicants that'll serve us well.
Phil's got a question or comment.
A question, is the term limits our own doing, or is this a federal requirement?
It's a state requirement.
Okay, so we don't have any choice, but to apply term limits. I think term limits is a bad idea, but if we're required to do it, then so be it. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Dan?
Just further to Bill's question, that was the same question I had. Is there any chance of changing that? Because it seems kind of restrictive and counterproductive.
Well, it would take a change in rule. When this was set up under HB 2017 for the STIF dollars, one of the things that they wanted to make sure is that because there's so many people that want to serve on these committees, that there's a fair chance that people get a chance to serve and that it isn't just a monopoly of people that stay in the position. I think that it's always something that we can address and we can put before the policy committee from the Oregon Transit Association to talk to them, because right now we're actually looking at the rules. So if there is concern and the board would like to see that question, I can certainly put it on the list of things for them to review with ODOT.
Well, I'll just speak up. I sort of like it. I mean, I'm sure Adam did, some effort in order to recruit, but we had like, what, 7 or 8 candidates, right? And I like it that we are allowing folks to be at the tables and to learn about transportation in our community, because there's many places that they can plug in after serving on this particular committee. There's the MPO, there's the RV Act, there's all kinds of other places. So I like the idea of getting more people involved myself. So that may not be the policy of the rule, but it's the effect, and so I sort of like it.
I would add, since there's so much interest, I mean, if we had a problem filling the seats, that would be a different question. But since there's so much interest, it doesn't feel like it's a problem at this point.
Well, and I can say in some rural communities, it can be a problem.
Sure.
And I think that they've had their concerns. So I don't know. I'll have to look at the list of policy issues that they're putting forth they're looking at the 2025 transportation bill. And this might be one of the fixes. So I can definitely check into it and report back to the board.
I agree that it's a good idea if we get plenty of applicants. If we're short on applicants, then it's a bad idea.
Yeah, yep. All right, any other thoughts, comments, questions?
Question. We seem to be missing dependent transit user. Is that a problem, or is that covered elsewhere, or how do we deal with that?
there's a chart that was submitted after the cover letter. And the categories that are in green, nonprofit, PTSP, individual over 65, low income, and a person with disabilities are the required representations. The other ones that are listed were recommended in the rule to try to recruit persons who can represent those, but
Okay.
yeah, so we're good with our requirements.
All right, I'd entertain a motion. Sarah Carter, Jennifer Christensen, sorry.
Christopherson.
Hector Flores and Natalie Mettler to our statewide transportation improvement fund advisory committee for 2 years.
So moved.
I'll let Carl have it.
Okay, Carl's moved. Great. All right, any further thoughts, comments, discussion? All right, roll call, please, Lou.
Denise Kraus,
Yes.
Bill Mansfield,
Yes,
Tanya Morrow,
Yes.
Don Stone,
Yes,
Jenna Marmon,
Yes.
Dan Davis.
Yes.
Carl McNair.
Yes.
7 yes votes, motion passed.
Thank you for the great work.
Thank you. And thanks, Adam, for all of your work. I think it shows that you got the word out.
All right, moving on to reports from Julie.
Good evening. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I'm glad to be in Salem, I think. That there's a lot going on right now with the short session, but also just getting prepared for the long session and the transportation bill, which is really, really important to this district. So tomorrow I'm meeting with Representative Marsh, and then on Friday I'm meeting with the chair of the Joint Transportation Committee to talk about the bill and where we're going to go. Right now, the governor staff reported today that the governor is supportive of the transportation bill, and everyone is kind of just trying to not roll out too early. We need to get through this short session and do some policy changes and things, and also concentrating on what the governor would like to see happen in this coming year, especially with housing. And with that said, one of the things, the general managers from the four largest transportation districts are going to be meeting with the governor to talk about homelessness and what we're trying to do in our communities to make sure that wherever these housing units are being placed, as things are considered for urban camps, etc., that they're not put in places where we can't serve. And then if they are put in places where we can't serve, that we consider doing something different that would actually help the people that are living in these campsites. One of the things I know that we've spoke with our chair, but also just to report out to our board, what we're doing is the urban campground where it is placed presently, we've been serving with a route, and it is moving over to McAndrews, over close to the Public Works Department's buildings. And one of the things that we talked about was how can we continue serving them? And it may not be exactly with bus service. So we got together with Rogue Retreat and looked at the 2 vehicles that we already donated to them and 2 more that we're going to be retiring from the Valley Lift side, and being able to give them those vehicles and then supporting them in an application to the city of Medford. We actually applied along with them to be the stewards of the dollars for operating those vans and passing through the dollars and looking at the compliance part of it. So we would be the keepers of the money to make sure that services get that dollars get spent for services to provide transportation services from the urban campground to, let's say, its mental health facilities, or to other appointments that the the members or the clients that they're serving are needing to get to. Because we may not be able to provide bus service exactly to them. They may not be able to get to the bus and being able to provide that level of service. So that is something we've been working with along with Road Retreat, and we have applied for a City of Medford. I don't want to call it a community block grant, but what is it called exactly, Paige?
It's community general fund.
Community General Fund, okay. Knew it was community something. So, do you know when we'll hear, Paige, on those grants?
I don't, we just got a couple follow-up questions late last week. I think they're hoping to announce it in early February. It will need to go to council.
And do you recall the exact amount we applied for?
50,000. And that's for a period of 18 months of operating the two vans combined. Just within the city of Medford though, because it's city of Medford funding, we would only provide services within the city. And we're hoping this could be a pilot if it's successful and maybe work with ORA in Ashland or other locations to do similar types of work. This is a common theme that's happening on the West Coast and in some of the states that are experiencing higher levels of people who are experiencing homelessness, is to try to augment transit services that better serve the people who are in these not only warming and cooling shelters, which change sporadically, locations, time, but the locations of services and programs also often change. Transit service is not flexible enough to, I think, be dynamic for the type of transportation that's needed. So we're hoping that this pilot will be successful and we can kind of turn it over to Rogue Retreat. They are already operating vans, as Julie said, that we've donated to them that were not needed in our fleet any longer. But those are really tied up with mental health, recidivization, having appointments for housing, for permanent housing. You have to show up in person. So they're trying to get people to those appointments, jobs, things like that. What we're trying to do, I think, is focus more on services that are not available at these rapid rehousing or urban campgrounds, like food. They don't provide food. They don't provide laundry. They don't provide showers. And a lot of those services are provided at churches or St. Vincent de Paul or other locations. And so I think the transportation discussion needs to be bolstered with advocates that are working for homeless, because it's really absent, especially when you think that they're only there for their housing, but then they have to go to all these other locations in the valley to have a subsistence of living. And so transportation is the only way, I think that we can help from RVTD's perspective with this funding. So we'll hopefully hear in the next month.
And we're really hopeful that it actually we'll be able to use this as a model for the state and part of the conversation with the governor. And so I know when the 4 general managers sit down with the governor and talk to her about how we're going to serve the homeless population and what are the barriers that what we're doing in the Rogue Valley can be used as an example of something that's successful. So we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Julie, it does, I looked at the service map, it looks like the Route 30 is like 2 blocks from the location, so that seems pretty good. But I mean, it probably doesn't serve all the locations that people need to get to, but at least there's something close
Yes,
by.
you're correct, Carl, and it is close by, and the city of Medford's actually, I believe, making sure that it's striped for a crosswalk in that area and making sure that it is accessible. But I think that a lot of times the time of these meetings, you know, trying to hook up with the Route 30, which is the Jacksonville route, and making that connection back in to the main hub and then getting back out to these other means. Sometimes it's very, very difficult. They're already experiencing a lot of barriers, and if we can help to lessen that and actually have Rogue Retreat do the one-on-one kind of counseling with them as they're taking them to the meetings, I think it's going to be really, really helpful.
Okay. Oh, it sounds like a great program, so.
Question, do you think that would be something we could consider for the problem of people not being able to get to the food bank in Ashland? People continually asking about that, you know, the Route 17 and the 10, they go up close to Tolman Creek, but it's still, can't get over the freeway. They want to, you know, maybe it's too big for a bus to get down Clover Lane. I think there is a turnaround down there, but maybe that would be, it sounds like, you know, maybe that could be considered something like a van from Aura to the food bank or something that people could pick up at Aura.
And I think, Dr. Cross, that's correct. I mean, I think that that's the thinking, that if we can show the success of this, then it can be deployed in other communities, and with the same lens of trying to really help people in that situation. Because unfortunately, the bus isn't always the solution for people. And if you think about trying to carry food, trying to get on the bus, trying to make this, walk those distances, sometimes it's such a large barrier that they just give up hope of being able to actually do it. And so this would be, for as far as I'm concerned, it would be as a talking point or a beginning conversation with the city of Ashland and talking to them about putting aside money to do something very similar.
Don's got a question. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, considering all of the barriers, and the difficulty in impossibility of changing our routes, does anybody have any idea of what the ridership might realistically be? No.
Not at this time. I mean, I think that people are just doing whatever they can, using volunteers, using friends, et cetera, to do it now. I think you could do some surveying from the different facilities and ask them where their clients are going. What is the need? I mean, there's always the possibilities of doing some kind of surveying. But a lot of times it's just rolling it out and trying to see if you can garner that, which has its own risk, but garner that the use of it. Right now, the nice piece for Rogue Retreat is they have had these 2 vehicles. They have been doing a lot of this, but they're running out of funds to be able to fund it. And so for us, being able to be the ones that actually are the keepers of the funds, which is one of the things that has kind of been a sticking point with Rogue Retreat. Now that they have new leadership, they're just trying to get it back on their feet. But transportation really needs to be it needs a state, because the other piece of this is, if we have this relationship with Rogue Retreat and we're able to look at those numbers and run those, it may garner a further conversation of putting a route somewhere that we can show that this is how many rides are actually happening. This is what it costs, and being able to really look at it and see if it's something else. It may mean a circulator or something that we're doing differently to serve those areas.
Jen.
I wonder too if there's a complement. I'm happy to hear that there's looking at a pedestrian route to the existing transit. But I wonder if it's really pretty close to Front Street and it's not a bad bike ride. And I'm wondering if there could be, you know, I mean, some people want to be independent and they would rather just ride a bike to Front Street and get where they want to go on the bus from the hub. And maybe there's an opportunity to do some kind of, you know, bike share or provide bikes or something along those lines. I know it's not the only answer, but perhaps it's complementary.
Right, and I think it's not that far to walk either, Jenna.
Yeah.
And so I think that one of the things is that, you know, for years, we've been talking about the one-stop shop where you could go and you could actually go to one area and you could receive all different kinds of resources and help to be able to make yourself more independent. And, you know, there's been many, many models, and all of us have argued over the years of what that could look like. But I think that what we're finding is at this point, we're all trying different things. And I know that for RVTD, we do give out bikes to people at Road Retreat. We give out bikes to, you know, to the VA Dom. We're working constantly to help that happen. I think that the hard part is making sure that when the client receives the bicycle, that they keep the bicycle, and that they don't just throw it away and it's a waste of resource. So we're just working on all of this. It's really a holistic view of trying to help people step up and get the help they need to be independent. Any other questions?
Sounds quiet here. What else you got?
So I wanted to report out that we still don't have a transportation manager and we still don't have an operations manager, but we do now have 4 field supervisors. And I'm pretty excited about this. It's a change. We've always run with 2, and then we went to 3, but we've had a hard time keeping people in place. We now have 4 people that are committed to providing the support needed for our drivers. And so we now have field supervisors that are being trained up. Their supervisor is Andy Swanson, and they also are under supervision as Sabina Martin, who is the transportation supervisor. And what we've tried to do is make sure that there is a field supervisor on duty from beginning to end of shift 6 days a week. And so far, the feedback that we've received from the drivers is that they're pretty positive. The 4 individuals that we have all have a background, believe it or not, either, well, 3 of them have background in criminal justice. So they've either been state police officers, or they've been county, not only Josephine, but Jackson County officers. And then the 4th person is Brian Simpson, who was our veterans person, who wanted to make a change and get into operations. And so now he's taken on that role too. And so they're building relationships, and what we're finding, people are pretty happy. And we're really trying to take a holistic view of our services that we provide, not really a heavy hand with our passengers, but really they're very good listeners and a helping hand. And so our idea is to move them towards finding services for them. And I'll give you an example that we had an older woman that was living in one of our shelters. And it was reported to us from our drivers that, you know, she was there during the night. She was freezing cold out there. They were really worried about her. She would disappear during the day usually, but would end up back there at night. And so our field supervisors went out and worked with her. They pulled their resources together, and we actually were able to convince her to go to the hospital and get a shower, get some clean clothes. We gave her some blankets and some things to keep warm. And then we kind of set her up with Mercy Flight to do an evaluation and try to see if we can help get her into either a temporary living situation, or she talked a lot about going home to another area, I believe it was Idaho, or going back to the Eugene area. And so everybody did all this work, got her up to the hospital. Hospital was supposed to do the eval with her, and then we were supposed to move her forward, and they dropped the ball on it, and she ended back out on the street again. And it was pretty frustrating for all of us involved, but this is an example of what we're trying to do with our field supervisors really is to be a resource to the people in our community that use our bus system so that they feel safe, that they don't feel threatened by people who are in our shelters, and also work with the people who are in our shelters to try to get them help where we can. So more to come, but we're pretty excited about this. Trying to be part of the solution. Questions? I keep losing you guys, so I don't see you, and I'm not sure.
Dan's got one.
Dan.
It just strikes me that I'm very impressed with what you're talking about, Julie. And I wonder how much of the public knows about things like some of the services you just described, and the fact that we're working hard to improve the efficiency of our buses. Have been working on that for a couple of years.
Sure. So I think that at some point, because all of this is new and we're trying something different, at some point we will tell the story. We'll probably do the story in our community benefits report. We'll also talk about it in our newsletter as we get a success story and we can roll it out. One of the things that we've really tried to do with our field supervisors is that we're trying not to be intimidating, but more as a resource, not only to our drivers, but also to help our passengers feel safe. When they feel as though somebody's going to respond to an incident that's happening in a shelter or to an accident or whatever it is, because their job also is they're responsible for responding to any accidents happen on our buses, incidents that happen, and they work hard with our livability team and also our police forces in our different communities. And we're just trying to take a different approach so it doesn't seem like we're just going to kick you out of the shelter. Get out of our way. We don't want to see you. We don't want to deal with you. To where, what can we do to try to help you get some resources if you're willing to move forward? Now, you're always going to have people that don't want help. And that's part of the problem too. They just don't want you to bother them. They don't want to be bothered with you. Or we do have situations where people are under the influence of drug or alcohol, and there's no reasoning with them. So at that point, we have to let law enforcement be the person that deals with that kind of a situation. But we're just trying to make it, one of the barriers to using the bus system that I hear repeatedly is that people don't feel safe on them anymore. And so we're trying to make that a myth and make sure that they realize that there is a transit community that watches out for each other, including the riders on the system. They don't put up with anything either. So if there's somebody acting up on a bus, there's been times when we've reviewed video where they're yelling, pull over, and they're telling the person to get off the bus. So they police it too. It's kind of nice to see the community growing. But as we move forward, I think that this again is the model that we're going to have to take. And right now in the metropolitan area, they're having problems with people using drugs on the buses. And so there is a bill that's going to be moving forward in the 24th session that will make it right now a Class C. They're trying for a Class A. If you use drugs or alcohol on the vehicle, that you can be arrested and actually fined for the use of it. We have had a couple instances of drug use on the buses. We have a bigger problem in our Portland Loo. And that kind of leads me to the next thing I was going to report out on. Over the years, we've said that Portland Loo is indestructible. Well, we found out it is destructible, unfortunately. And what we're experiencing right now is the kicking in of the door handles. And it's quite expensive to replace them. So they're breaking handles off, and I don't know why. And it's gotta hurt by what they're doing to them. But I know Nick and Josh are in the background. Nick, what is the cost of a replacement of one door handle?
Yeah, they're about $207 each.
And how many have we replaced probably in the last 4 months?
3 of them.
So, you know, this is a problem for us, which gets down to security. So the other thing too is we're reviewing our security down there. This is happening a lot of times at night when nobody is around. And I'm not sure why the destruction happens, but there's a lot of activity that happens downtown after dark, after everybody's gone. The other night, they stole one of the pieces of equipment from our construction site, and they were actually it was an excavator, they were driving it around, or a forklift, I believe. Whoever the person was knew how to do it. He was pretty good at it. We thought maybe the construction people should hire him. But, you know, there's a lot of things that are happening where we're really just trying to be proactive and address it right on and try to make people feel safe. And it kind of leads into the conversations that have been happening at the library with RCC, with all of us down there. And we're still exploring that whole idea of how we could share our resources and make it safer for everyone down there. Because the last thing we want to see is RCC pull out of the community and things get out of hand. I am going to be attending a Jackson County Library Visioning Workshop on February 15th. I was invited to come. And we'll be looking at, again, trying to work together to make the change in our community down there. So any questions from the board?
Just applaud you for being proactive and taking on these difficult issues, trying to find productive solutions.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think that the thing is, and we've all started to realize that if we don't, nobody will. So it takes leadership from our organization, and they look to RVTD as being the leader in it. And I want to thank the staff. So, you know, Andy Swanson, Nick Black, Paige, Edom, all of us. Edom's been going to the consortium meetings, and we're just trying to participate as much as possible to make sure that we're at the table and that we're getting the word out that, you know, one of the things that's frustrating is they talk about it in nauseum over and over and over, nothing ever happens. And I think that what they're seeing is RVTD's making it happen. And so now they need to keep up because they don't want to be embarrassed that they're not doing anything. And I have to applaud the city of Medford. They're putting the money out. I hope the county does too at some point. But the city has stepped up and they are putting money out and trying to make things happen. They're not necessarily being the ones that are doing the work as far as making it happen, but they're making sure that the nonprofits are able to get money to be able to try to apply some of these solutions. So.
Bill's got something. Hold on.
I just wanted to echo what was already said. I applaud you for recognizing that our district is more than just a transportation organization. We are here to help the down and out. And so I'm all for it. I just wanted to cast my vote in favor. That's one of, I know it's not a new idea, I know, but it's good to reinforce that from time to time.
Well, and that kind of takes me to my next topic, which was we just had an all-employee meeting this last Sunday. One of the things that we talked to them about was, what is our mission? You know, what are we really here for? Who's paying our bills? Why are we here? And what our role is as employees. And we will be presenting to you, I believe, Paige, if I'm correct, at the next board meeting, our homeless, some of the homeless plan and actually some of how we're addressing homelessness in our community.
Right?
I think we're gonna do March because February, we have the public hearing and then our financial audit presentation. So Julie's referring to a homeless action plan that I've been working on over the past several months. This is based on a TCRP, which is the Transportation Cooperative Research Program. It's a nationally funded scientific paper. Sorry. Anyway, TCRP reports are fantastic. We use them a lot for transit. They came out with one regarding homelessness in transit, and they did just a great job with overviewing BART and other systems in the nation and the types of programs that they're trying to develop in their communities. And so we've started our own homeless action plan. It's in the progress. I think we'll be presenting that in March to get your feedback.
The other thing we did for our staff was try to give them some tools on de-escalation and how to take a conversation at that fare box by somebody who's boarding, bringing it down to the notch of welcome aboard, thank you for using RVTD, and just providing a level of customer service, because most assaults on drivers happen at the fare box. That's where the argument comes in. And so one of the things that we've told people is if somebody comes to the fare box and they are short the entire, they don't have the entire fare, or they're just having a rough time, it's nothing for us to be able to hit the short button, say welcome aboard, and let them board the bus and provide the service. And I think that what we'll find is it empowers our employees also to feel like they are making a difference in our community, instead of just putting up a barrier to tell somebody who is on their last legs that no, we don't want you here. So it was a really interesting meeting on Sunday, and I think that we really tried to inspire the employees to look at things a little bit differently. I think that when all of us do that, we're in a world right now that isn't a very pleasant place to be. And it seems like all of our anxiety is ratcheting up to the point where I even find myself losing my patience over really stupid things that I should never get upset about. And by being able to empower them to be part of the solution, it makes you feel good about your job, and it makes you happy to come the next day. I know Lynn's right there, and she'd probably give me a thumbs up. Glad to be at work today, Lynn, right? Glad to be here. So the other thing I'm working on, we got a couple other things, but I'll go through them really quick. The Oregon Transit Association Board of Directors has been working on the policy for the 2025 package. So we're looking at all the rules that came with the stiff dollars, and looking at if there is any policy change or rule changes that need to be made. So we're looking at statutory, and we're also looking at rules as far as being able to make changes to make it work better, to make sure that there's accountability, all of those things. I think you will be pleased. We're not ready to say exactly what it is we're looking at, but we are looking at an 8-year lift of transit funding for 4 bienniums, so every 2 years, of seeing an increase in funding to be able to not only sustain our existing services, so we're not talking about services that are new, that were brought in by the STIF, but also sustaining our core services, and then being able to look at our long-range strategic plans anticipate what our capital costs are going to be, how to phase in electrification or zero emission vehicles over the next 10 years, and using some of our STIF dollars to match that, and then also provide a level of operating dollars. So as we work through this, and we've been meeting almost weekly on it, every other week, and then having board meetings in between, we're starting to paint a picture. And one of the things, the reasons I'm here until Friday is I'll be meeting with the co-chair of the Joint Transportation Committee to kind of roll out some of those ideas and talk about where we are going to land. So far, what I hear from the governor's office and also from the Joint Transportation Commission is a thumbs up on an increase in the STIF. So we will be reporting back to you in the near future what that looks like. And then the last thing, well, I had received a letter that I'm going to forward on to the board from Patsy Templer. And she asked that the board consider lowering the cost of Valley Lift. So right now, we are allowed to charge double the fixed route fare, which is $2. So every Valley Lift ride going one way is $4 or round trip $8. And she asked that the board consider lowering the cost of the Valley Lift fare for people that are elderly and disabled, because they're just having a hard time being able to use the service. There's a couple concerns that we have, and that is the ridership on the Valley Lift program actually has increased. So we've seen an increase over the period, the last few years. I want to remind you that the Valley Lift fare, or the actual cost of the ride, is anywhere between $35 and $50, depending on where it is and when it happens. So they're paying a portion of that, or $4 out of that $35 to $50 ride, depending on where it is that we're serving. And so one of the things that we've talked about in the past is using some of the STIF dollars to actually bring the fare costs down. When you do that, it also increases demand. And right now, we're not in a situation where we can meet an increase in demand until a couple things happen. One is we're in the process of doing a soft launch on our Q Ride, which is our software for the Valley Lift program in the non-emergent medical transportation program. And what we're hoping this software will do is actually do a better job of grouping rides together. And so when you are able to have a software product that can actually do a better job, then the rides become lower cost, because you're able to group people versus using one ride per person. The other thing is, because of COVID, we had to go to where it was only one client on the vehicle at the time. That has changed, and we're starting to group rides more, but we need to get a handle on this. And so I will respond to Ms. Templer, but I will pass on my response to her and to the board along with her request. Is there any questions from the board or something that they want me to consider?
I have a question about, so I'm actually helping a friend right now who's 85, trying to get just on Valley Lift to use the service and see how it works for her. But if you're going, like, say, from Ashland to Eagle Point, it's the same $4 as if you're just going from a neighborhood to a library, right?
Correct.
So is that, is there any chance of considering like more of the length of ride or anything in the cost?
So the cost on the fare is set by the federal government. So they are the ones that say you have to have an equivalent complimentary service that mirrors the fixed route. It's based off the fixed route. So we don't, right now, if you ride a Route 10, it's $2. If you go in Medford and you only go a few blocks, it's $2. So it's just based on the fare box and the fare that we charge for the fixed route. There's no way to get around that. There is, at this point. But I think that what we can consider is using money to supplement, or even having a program where we can supplement people's Valley Lift costs. And you can consider their, sorry, I almost said revenue. I've got so much revenue on my brain that it's not working. Income, thank you, Carl. What is my income? Yeah, what is my revenue? So there is ways to have programs like that. We just haven't had the bandwidth to be able to even lower the cost at this point and be able to meet the demand. Because the other thing the federal government says is that you cannot deny any ride. So you have to be able to meet that demand, which means we have to have enough vehicles, and we also have to have the capacity to increase the demand. And that is what will happen. So in the past, when we've lowered the cost of Valley Lift fare, the increase on demand has been almost to the point where we couldn't meet the demand. It was just overwhelming to us, but we were able to do it. So we're just looking at all of that and trying to weigh it. And then at some point, I will come to the board and kind of give you some scenarios and let the board really look at and see what they think we need to do. It's tough times, and I would love to just drop it and say free fare across the board for the entire system. But we're not at that point yet, because we still need that fare box revenue.
All right. Thanks, Julie. You have anything else?
The only other, there's two things. One, I'm gonna open a can of worms.
Uh-oh.
So, and let you know of some situation, and Nick and Josh are here. So, I'm gonna have Nick actually give you an update on our construction, and I think he has actually a little video to show you. But the can of worms I'm going to open is this one. We have been having problems with our CNG compressors. And this has been an ongoing problem, I'd say, for about 8 months, maybe even longer than that. But it's gotten critical really in the last 8 months, to the point where we're down a compressor. We're running on one, the other one isn't even running. So we don't have any redundancy. The only way that we can fuel our vehicles, if this one compressor that is limping along breaks, is to fuel out in the White City area, using the compressed natural gas fueling system out there. The problem with that one is that it has been down too. We are in the process of working with Rogue Disposal on writing a grant to get a backup generator for the compressors, that's one issue. The second issue is Knox Western, who was the agency that was awarded our contract to begin with years ago when we bought our new compressors, which was in 2008 or 9, Nick?
2011.
Oh, was it 11? We must have got the grant in 9. So 2011, we awarded Knox Western the contract to build our compressors, etc. Since then, and just recently, Knox Western has been bought out. And they've been bought out by a company in India.
Right.
And their system is proprietary. So the only way we can get service and the only way we can get parts is through them. And it's been very, very difficult. So at this point, we're not sure what's going to happen. We don't even know if we're going to get the parts. It's kind of one of those things where every 2 weeks, Josh says to me, well, they said the parts are going to be here in 2 weeks. And we just laugh because it's just been an ongoing joke. And we're not getting the parts and we're not getting the service. With that said, we still have vehicles that haven't met their life use, and we're going to have to fuel. We just took a bus on that has a 12-year life cycle. So what we are considering doing is applying to get a new compressed natural gas system put in play. So we would have to apply for state discretionary funds to actually replace that system. And I think we're gonna have to do it because we cannot take the time to drive vehicles out and fuel them. And we don't have the compressor system to do it. And so we're in trouble. So I wanted to bring this to you, to your awareness that we have an opportunity to apply to the state discretionary funds to replace that compressor. And did I miss anything, Nick?
No, Julie, that pretty much covered it. If I could just add a couple things that, like Julie mentioned, it was last December 23, that we had a catastrophic meltdown of one of our two compressors. I'm sure this fiscal year, and actually last fiscal year, if you recall, we were planning to do the midlife overhaul of that machine to gain many additional years to work. Unfortunately, with Knox West Spring bought out by the company based in India, and then they got rid of all their engineers and technicians that were involved in the CNG compressor program that they had. Midlife overhaul, I'm afraid it's not going to happen. Luckily, we have very little funds invested into it. We've had works on work for about 10 months now. Haven't received anything, so we're gonna probably most likely have to cancel that midlife.
Nick, can you remind the board how many compressed natural gas vehicles we have and how many are cycling out?
Of course. So right now, with the new additional bus received in October, that brings us to 35 CNG vehicles right now. Many of it will be running well past up to 2040 is what we anticipate for CNG vehicles.
So you can't get a overhaul, you have to do what you're calling a new system?
Right.
And if the state funds, then we don't have to like use it for 30 years, is that right, or no?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we'll use it for the useful life of the vehicles we have on site.
Okay.
Question about the state discretionary fund. Will that cover the total cost, or will we have to pony up some additional money to meet it?
We will have to make the match, which I think is 20.
It's 10.
It's 10%, which
Wow.
isn't as bad as the federal side.
Do we have that much money available discretionary in our own budget at this point?
It's gonna be close. I mean, one of my concerns is we need to start, because of our big construction projects. And once we get through that, we'll kind of know better where we stand with our balance. But we're going to have, I mean, we just need to be careful. And I think that one of the things is we don't have much choice here. And we're trying to figure out the best way of doing it. You know, we have overhauled them already. Thank God we have the mechanic. We have a mechanic that is well-versed in RCNG compressors who's been limping it along. And he's teaching a couple of our other mechanics how to deal with all this. The one thing that I think we'll make sure we do in this next go round is the system we buy isn't proprietary to where you can't, so the one we have now, you can't interchange the parts, and that's the problem. But they won the bid, and so we're gonna have to be smart in the way that we bid this out and the stipulations we put around it. But at the end, once we have moved our last CNG and we no longer need the fueling system, we can either sell it or we can donate it to another property that needs it.
So the life cycle though, on the 2011 system that we put in is supposedly what? Like 25 years or something, wasn't it?
We believed it was 20 years. That's what we put in our proposal, I believe. Paige, is that correct? Originally, we said that would need to last 20 years.
The certain components have a useful life of 30 years. Components that are, you know, like the compressors and dispensers at the fuel island and, you know, other types of high frequency use, they of course don't. And so we have been replacing some of those components. But I believe the tanks, we're going to keep the tanks, and we are going to keep some of the existing infrastructure. We're going to keep the fueling island. It's mainly the compressor. There's a little shack warehouse, if you're familiar with our campus, that has the master control of that area. And then, of course, piping and electrical that goes along with the compressors. And so those are the main components that we're looking at replacing.
And what is the overall cost, do you think, the estimation on it?
We received an estimate for approximately 3 million.
3 million.
Okay.
When's the application due?
It's due March 13th, I believe.
Nick, are these compressors driven by electric motors or?
That's correct. With that 3 million estimate, I just want to add that, like Paige mentioned, you know, that's for a complete system, but we're going to try really hard to use existing equipment like our storage tanks and things like that that could draw down that cost of it.
What are the options if the compressor that's currently running dies before we can replace things? Can we get deliveries of compressed natural gas?
You can get the natural gas, you just have to compress it. And so what we would have to do is go to White City.
We do have a pretty large stock of parts for this machine that, you know, depending on the level of failure, you know, we can repair a lot of items, you know, valves and springs, seals, and things like
Depends
that.
on what breaks.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's the proprietary cast metal parts that Knox Western makes that are.
I could add to, we've been discussing this obviously over the last couple of months. It's been a weighing on our minds. I see this also as an opportunity with our campus master plan. Nick alerted me to the fact that if we do replace these components, it's approximately a 1,800 square foot footprint. If you look at our campus and you look at the tanks and the compressors and the master control shack and that whole area, which is right smack in the middle of our campus, and it's made it very difficult for us to be able to plan around. We have the opportunity to potentially relocate that. We're buying all this new equipment. Fuel Island will stay where it's at, but the equipment that's in the middle of the campus could be relocated to a better site. And then that will help to free up some of the space that we're looking to do for battery electric. So I see it a little bit as a, you know, kind of a silver lining that, well, maybe we can actually move into phase 2 a little bit sooner by relocating 1,800 square foot. I mean, think of it, that's like the size of a house. It's substantial. So I'm not going to promise that, but I'm hoping that that's something that we can try to make happen with this as well.
Sorry to be a downer.
It was helpful until she said, I can't promise you.
Right.
Well, and I.
Go ahead. I was just gonna ask whether Nick's got some good news and show us some fun video or something like that, but.
We
Yeah.
do have good news, other than I heard through the grapevine that we blew a line. What we do?
Water
we
line,
have-
water line.
It was the water line feeding the main office building.
Was that good news?
But it is fixed.
No.
No.
It's
I
fixed.
heard that we couldn't
Or
go to the
opportunities
bathroom.
reconfiguring things.
It was our contractors. They were
It's a
taking,
swimming pool.
I was just like, I'm so
That's
thrilled.
right.
I'm so thrilled to be in Salem that I have to deal with everybody yelling at me, not having a bathroom. So, okay, Nick, do you want to show your video?
So I'm happy to report, I actually do have a little bit more good news up my sleeve, so I'll present that master video now. So last time you saw this project, there was excavation in the building pad. Now, I'll kind of walk you through. So this is off of Forest Hills Drive looking forward. That's the first wall that's been poured, kind of what you call a foundation wall for the parking garage. And then as you see there, the wooden structures, those are the walls starting to go up in preparation for the precast big beams that are coming on site here in a couple months. Let's look towards our main bus right there. And then you see the two-story transmission building right there going up. Roof beams are going on and gonna start sheeting here and actually drying out the building over the next 2 weeks. Progress is going good. I received an official notice that we are 1 month ahead of schedule last week.
Wow.
So this is due to be completed early October.
And on
That
budget?
Still within budget. That's actually Julie's office window we're looking at right there.
Are you sure?
Oh, it's over here.
That's it. Maybe it's the other. I think our video froze.
I was thinking I was on the other corner.
I was thinking she was in the gray house across the street.
So our
Well, one
contract-
of our employees, actually, his apartment is right there,
So he's gonna
Right.
be.
right through that window.
Oh, you can keep an eye on him.
He goes, "Oh, are you gonna wave at me?" And I'm like, I don't want to even look in your window. That's his window right there.
Is that where
The
the
video was a little starty, but
Oh.
our general contractor was very proud of himself. They actually nailed the drone. They take photos. He flew through the window. He was very proud of himself.
Nick, is that where the maintenance is gonna be in that building?
So that's gonna be transportation department,
Right.
you know, bus drivers, supervisors, managers, supervisors. They're gonna be downstairs, and then upstairs is the training center, kind of an executive conference.
So the maintenance bays are staying where they're at right now?
That's right.
For the time being.
Yeah.
That's phase 3, I think.
Yeah.
2 or 3.
Oh,
And then, did you have anything for downtown?
yes, downtown, which is the downtown admin building and the travel training center is going very well too. Joy's building up that building for us. Right now, all the internal structures are framed up. They've started drywall this week. We're on schedule to have people ready by this June. These are some photos of the interior. That room right there is the big room that we sitting out there. That's gonna be the pages of the planning period.
So when you go back to that picture, Nick, everything to the left of that beam on the floor, that one?
Yep.
That's where the community room is, correct? And the
Yes.
boardroom?
this is the interior of the travel training center, the old Greyhound.
And did you want to talk a little bit, Nick, about Gillig and the idea on this training center?
Yeah, so within this training center, we're doing some, you call it like a mock bus. We're gonna call it a mock travel training bus. And so we partnered with Gillig, who's our bus vendor, Q-String, who they handle all the ADA tie downs and quantum restraint system in our vehicles. They're donating us equipment and parts to help us do this. Essentially, we're gonna build a bus within this building out of wood. It's gonna have bus components. It kind of serves two functions. One is to allow us to train the public how to ride a bus. How to use our technology like the fare box and use our Google Pass on the touch pass. And then on the other side of that, we're gonna be able to train our coach operators on our technology without actually having to have it in a real vehicle, out in the cold or anything like that. They will be able to have it. What this does to be a very unique project. When you walk up, it's going to look like a real bus. It's going to have a real bus front end, real windows, side panels, real bus seats. It's going to be very impressive. I wish I would have brought a photo to show you, but we're already kicked it off. We're just waiting for the building to get a little further along, so we don't get in the way. We'll start cranking it up.
It'd be like a simulator.
Yeah, actually, that would be a good way to put it. Yeah, kind of like a simulator.
I'm glad you brought a simulator up, Dan.
Are you?
And you can change out the advertising on the sides of the buses.
Yeah, we're gonna, to this thing called our sponsors for this project, we're gonna have a thing on the bus on the side, not very big, but just, things real thing. Anybody else who steps up and stuff.
You need actors to portray actual transit customers.
This is the finance suite right here. I'm looking at right, we're looking at Debbie's office.
As far as that.
It's kind of hard to figure out all of that, but it's pretty exciting. So I lied, I said I was done, but I do have two more things I forgot to tell you about. One is
Professionally, two more, not just one more.
as Debbie used to say, I have two things here. Two things. One is the Oregon Transportation Commission will be in Medford March 13th. And so if you get a chance to be able to come to the commission meeting, it's going to be held, I believe, at the City of Medford's Prescott Room, which is downtown. It joins the police department. And so
And what date again? March 13th?
March 13th.
At what time?
I believe it'll be at 9 o'clock.
Thank you.
Mhm. And then the other thing I wanted to report was I met with RCC and believe it or not, the Trucking Association. And one of the things that we're talking about is the Trucking Association actually has a simulator, and they have been using it to train people to get their CDL. And they approached us and asked us to come to the meeting because they wanted to find out if we needed help with getting drivers and getting them through the CDL process. And one of the things that we found out about the simulator was we could pop in a simulation of driving a bus and actually do bus training for our operators on the simulator, which I thought I want to try it out because I'd love to drive a bus, but nobody will let me. So, what better way to actually be able to get in a simulator and, drive through the community. But we're working with the Workforce Partnership, Southern Oregon Workforce Partnership, with the trucking industry and RCC to actually try to put something together. And I'm really excited about it. And one of the things they said was, would you guys be willing to come and talk to the truck drivers that are finishing their CDLs about coming and working for you? And we went, yeah. That'd be great. Because one of the things that they're finding with a lot of people is they're getting their CDLs, but they don't want to leave home. They want to stay in their community. They want to be home at night. And so they're looking for opportunities like ours, not only us, but also the school bus drivers. So we're really excited about it. I think that it's going to be a good partnership, and there's state money to be able to pay for their schooling. So it gives people opportunity if they decide that they want a driving opportunity, that they can actually get involved in this. So, okay, that's it. I promise. I'm going to stop.
Question on that.
Yes.
Is that a revenue opportunity to have other people like the school bus people get training on our simulator once it's replaced?
Well, the simulator would actually belongs to the Trucking Association. We would just get the modular that would pop it in there. The school bus would be able to do the same. The software, I'm not sure what the software is, but it's not cheap. But it's just an opportunity, they think, to be able to start working with these high school students and getting them excited about careers that are other than just going on to college, that they could actually work in a job that actually has good wages and benefits, and having a career in that. So for us, it wouldn't be a revenue generator unless we wanted to get certified, and we don't want to go down that road because there's so much liability in it. I'd rather have the college take on the liability.
Right.
So this is pictures of the bus training that is in some of these communities. That the first one that they showed, that one is in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And then the second one, I'm not sure where that one is. Does anybody know?
I'm not sure what that one is either.
So that'll be similar to what we're gonna get.
Yes.
There would be very, very in line with what we're gonna build.
Yeah.
Size-wise.
The migrant.
So,
Use the
yeah,
colorful version.
first we'll have, we'll probably, use our option colors on it. But we'll have a ramp just like that leading outside, seats and everything.
All right. Thank you all. A lot of worms crawling around in here, but any general comments or questions from members of the board?
One comment. The City of Medford Transportation Commission has a vacancy for an at-large member right now. So if you know anyone that lives in Medford that you think would be good, you can point them to the city's website.
Oh, I want to do that, Carl.
Looking for another job, Julie?
In your spare time?
You might spare time.
Connection so that I could meet with the mayor and the council.
Huh.
So I am interested.
Oh, well,
You have to be in Medford though?
you have to live in Medford
Yeah.
or own a business, I think. Well, hopefully you can work that out, yeah.
So they go to the website and apply, is that?
Yeah, there's, on the city's website, under boards and commissions, there's an online application, I believe.
Anybody else? Comments, announcements? All right, RV COG met today, right, Bill?
They did, and I have some things to tell you. I know our meeting has been overly extended, but I'm gonna take a
You
minute
should
or
do
two
it,
anyhow. The principal speaker at the meeting was a lady by the name of Liz James, who is chair of the Rogue Valley Council of Government Senior advisory council, so she talked about all the services that they perform. One of the issues that arose was, we all, of course, acknowledge that isolation is one of the principal problems, probably more serious than financial and health problems. Isolation for old people is very serious. Question became, how do these services get made known to the potential recipients? I don't have any super answers, but she talked about different ways that is a problem area. So we don't have an answer for anything. I don't have an answer for anything today. I'm just presenting problems. Kim Wallen and another legislator appeared and talked to us. Kim was very informational. She talked about the legalization of marijuana, of course, is going to be a big subject for this 1 month February special session that we now have in off years. Housing, probably not as much. You probably noticed an article in the paper the other day that indicated that for the 37,000 units that the governor feels we need per year, a study group has been studying that, and they came out with what I consider to be some astounding costs. I'm not trying to argue for or against any of this now, I'm just informing you. They proposed that there needed to be an income tax increase, a sales tax increase, a payroll tax, and a state property tax of $1,000. That means those of you who have $600,000 houses would be paying $600 a year. I'd only be paying $300 a year, but she did not believe, Kim did not believe that there are going to be any tax increases in this special session. So that'll be a subject for the next regular session, which meets a year from now. That's about all I can bother you with today. There was a discussion about Grants. The city of Grants Pass is $1 million short. But thankfully, Medford is $1 million short on their fire and police budget. So they need to figure out some ways to do it. The big problem, of course, is none of us want to pay taxes. We all want the services. I leave you there without any solution. Thank you.
No comments?
No comment.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. No MPO meeting is canceled due to lack of an agenda. Tradco?
I came in late and got into the discussion principally around the promoting the South Stage Road interchange. And there was a lot of discussion, but not much action. Julie was going to be there at the early part of the meeting. Julie, do you have anything from the early part of the meeting?
I actually ended up not being able to go to the meeting. So I lied to you, Dawn, and said I was going to be there. So I don't know what was said. Sorry.
There is going to be a public meeting about the South Stage.
Yes.
I neglected to get the date on that, but it's
January 31st.
January 31st, thank you. But in any case,
Yes.
that's what I have.
And there is a online open house open right now.
Has it been decided it's going to be an interchange or just, that's
No,
one of the big questions?
That's
Okay.
what
Yeah.
this study is
Okay.
looking at.
Got it. All right, RBI. I was unable to attend. Oh, that's right.
I have a report for RB Act. I think Director Marmon was not available to attend. We had a presentation from Public Transportation Division, which is kind of rare. So that was neat. It was reviewing what they consider the intercity transit network across the state. These are transit routes that flow often over county lines and over transit district lines, and some of them are even funded by Public Transit Division. And so they were giving an update on what those routes look like, and then also some of the places where there's a lack of service, or service where you have to stay overnight to be able to catch the route the next day to get across the state. And Public Transit Division's been trying to provide some solutions and more service opportunities, and partnering with local transit agencies to fill those gaps. So they provided a presentation on that. RV Act has also been doing strategic planning across the state that we got a brief presentation on. Chair Morrow was on our RV Act Strategic Planning Committee, from what I understand.
Yep.
And one of the items that they're hoping to include in this plan, this is just kind of a outline of what the plan would look like, but is to identify 2 or 3 transit projects that the RV Act could help with, supporting for future funding. So that's yet to be developed or even discussed as far as I know with RVTD, but of course we're wanting to have those conversations and eager to learn more about what those opportunities are. And then lastly, I think for this group's benefit, the Oregon Department of Transportation also flexed over federal highways funds a few years ago to what's called the Carbon Reduction Program. These are funds that were available to the state last year for a solicitation that were to go only to MPO areas and cities within those MPO areas. We have a couple projects that were submitted last year from our area, not RVTD. And this year, I think we are planning to apply for our campus master plan. It would be the phase 2 that we've been talking about tonight, that would identify transitioning into battery electric bus infrastructure or potentially hydrogen. The issue is that I don't think it's going to score very well, only because they are looking for shovel-ready projects. Like, they want charging stations installed within a year. They want people to make, infrastructure changes within a year. Ours would be a plan. I think it should compete well, given that it is carbon reduction planning work, and we are needing to have that plan to even compete for funds, to be eligible to even receive funds. We have to have that plan. So I'm going to submit, there's 1.3 million available to our RV MPO area. So I feel like we should put our name in the hat, and we should try to get the funding for it. But I'm just not sure what our chances are at this point. That's, I think, pretty much it.
The other big thing that's going on soon too is the enhanced grant program solicitation. So that's for rail and airports and stuff like that. So there'll be more on that as well. Yeah, okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Thank you all. We'll be adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, guys. Good night.
Bye.
Bedtime page.
Her voice.
All right, bye.
Night.